Hey y'all, Teacher Jimmy here. And before we get started on this, I want to say this may be just a little bit different. Most of the stuff that I make videos out of and do presentations for you guys, most of it is stuff that I make myself. This time, uniquely, this is something that was made by somebody else in the district. Now, I edited a bit and added in a few of my own touches, but as you can probably already tell from the green background, this isn't a straight up Mr. Murray thing. So if it's awesome, well, no credit to me. If you don't like it, well, you'll probably be back to a standard Mr. Murray type video next time. We are now going to start really learning about Africa. And if there's one word that I think best sums up Africa, it's diversity. Compared with any other place in the world that we have studied or will study, there's more diversity, more differences in Africa in pretty much every sense of the word than anywhere else in the world. It's got huge, vast, dry deserts and super wet rainforests. It's got crazy animals of all types. It's got people of all different ethnicities, hundreds of languages, big modern cities, empty savanna, and everything in between. So, hopefully, this presentation will give you just a little bit of a sense of just how many different things Africa has. We'll start with this. Which one of these pictures is from Africa? Well, that is a lie. All of these pictures are from Africa. Every single one of them is a uniquely African picture. So let's try this again. No fake outs this time. Which one of these is not from Africa? The answer is the tiger in the upper right hand corner. Tigers are pretty much limited to Asia, not Africa. But every other one of these animals is an animal that's indigenous to Africa. All right, let's move on. Let's see what we got here. So here's Africa. You've already done your map of this place, so you know there are a bunch of countries in Africa. But if we take the countries away for just a minute, here is a satellite view of what Africa looks like. Now, just looking at Africa from space, you can kind of see up in the north. That is the Sahara Desert. It is the world's largest hot desert. It's about as big as the United States, at least the United States minus Alaska. If you head south from that, you hit the Congo rainforest, hot, wet, all sorts of plants and wildlife. And then as you keep heading southwards, you will get to the savanna, the grasslands of the south of Africa. So, generally speaking, we can divide Africa up into five separate regions. Up in the north, as long as you are north of the Sahara Desert, you are considered to be in northern Africa. On the west, that part that kind of bulges out and sticks out to the west, that's Western Africa. In the middle, you have Central Africa. In the east, you have Eastern Africa. And then way down there in blue at the bottom, there is Southern Africa. We're going to kind of go through Africa according to each of these regions and just look at a few things from each region. So, once again, it lists out all these. You know what? I think I sort of explained this before. We're going to move on. Feel free to pause and read all that if you would like. Next, North Africa. The United Nations defines the region of North Africa as the six countries of Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Sudan, Tunisia, Morocco, and the territory of Western Sahara. The Sahara Desert has always been a cultural barrier between North Africa and the rest of the continent. Therefore, North Africa became much more closely tied to southwestern Asia, that's the Middle East, and Europe than sub Saharan Africa. The area's religion is predominantly Islamic, and North Africa, along with the Middle East, is a major part of the Arab world. Okay, we'll start in Egypt. One of the most famous things are the Egyptian pyramids. These are ancient structures, thousands of years old. In Egypt, there are over 130 pyramids that have been found, and archaeologists are still exploring them and discovering new things about them. The Nile River. This is the longest river in the world. It's more than 4,000 miles long. If you look over on the very right side of the screen, you can see a zoom in of the satellite picture. The Nile River runs from south to north. If you look at the top of the image, you can actually see the Green River Delta in the middle of the desert. That area is green, as is, that's why you can see the river because of all the greenery, because the Nile River brings life giving water to this region. Since ancient times, the Nile River has made it possible for this region to grow food, which otherwise would have been impossible in the Sahara Desert. The Nile River goes through a whole bunch of countries: Kenya, Eritrea, Congo, Burundi, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. Okay, the Suez Canal. Now, a canal is, you can sort of think of as a man made water shortcut. If you look at the map, you can see if you're going to start in London and you want to go to Mumbai in India, you've got two choices if you're going by boat. You can either go all the way around Africa, which is more than 12,000 miles, or this Suez Canal was a man made shortcut that was dug from the Mediterranean Sea into the Red Sea. So instead of going more than 12,000 miles, you're looking at more like just 7,000 miles. That is an enormous shortcut, and it's still one of the busiest waterways in the entire world. It's been an important part of the region since, well, since it existed. Next up, the pyramids of Sudan. Now, when you think pyramids, pretty much everybody thinks, Egypt. And to be fair, the Egyptian pyramids are huge and enormous on a scale that almost defies our understanding of what people were capable of building way back then. But Sudan actually has more pyramids than Egypt does. Sometimes these are also called the Nubian pyramids. Okay, the Libyan Desert. The Libyan Desert is a part of the bigger Sahara Desert, and it is one of the driest places on the face of the earth. You can actually have some parts of it where decades, that's tens of years, will pass without any rain. Like you could have a spot where it doesn't rain for a solid 30 years. But then when it does, that's something, if you live there, you might only live to see it happen maybe once or twice. But when the rain finally comes, for just a little while, this dry desert turns beautiful and green, even if only for a little while. Some of the plants that leave their seeds there, the seeds can actually just survive and wait for that incredibly infrequent rainfall before they're finally ready to bloom. Okay, this is a picture of an Islamic mosque. Like it said before, almost all of North Africa is very, very Muslim. So this is an example of where some Muslim people in North Africa might go to pray. Now, for Algeria, Algeria, like a lot of North Africa, is defined by the Sahara Desert. I've already talked about how big it is, nearly as big as the continental United States. It's bigger than the continent of Australia. And it was pretty much impossible to cross in the old days. Like, it was physically impossible to carry enough water to, if you're going to start at the North Shore, you could not carry enough water, even if you had camels, to make it down to the south where there was water again. About the only way to do it, to get around the desert, you either needed to use a boat and use the ocean, or you had to have one group heading south and another group heading north. And the group heading north would bring extra water so that when they met up with you, right as you were about to run out of water, everyone could turn around and make it all the way to the south. There were actually big gold mines in some of the modern day countries called Mali, which was why people would work so hard to get across this huge desert. But this desert has always created this huge barrier to travel and information exchange between North Africa and the rest of Africa. These are some Kasbah ruins in the Atlas Mountains of Morocco. Now, a lot of cities in North Africa have a place called Kasbah. A lot of times they're in the middle of big cities and they tend to look like lots of buildings all lumped together and almost on top of each other. Before I die, I'd like to see the Kasbah in Morocco or maybe the one in the city of Algiers. They look pretty cool to me, and I've read enough about them that, man, I would love to explore someplace like this before I die. And looks like we're done with North Africa. The rest of Africa is called Sub Saharan Africa. That means, below the Sahara. All right. On this climate zone map, I want you to look at the three big colors you see in the top half of the map. There's that huge red region. That, as you might expect, that's the Sahara Desert. That's where it's really hot, really dry. Skip past the little orange line and you see the blue. That's where things are a bit cooler, and more importantly, where you actually get some moisture, some water and rain. But right in the middle, you have the orange. That is the Sahel. That is where the desert borders the rest of Africa. Sahel is an Arabic word. It means shore. Because in Arabic culture, the desert is often spoken of like it's an ocean. So the shore is where the ocean meets the land. The Sahel is where the desert meets the rest of Africa. It's a really interesting region that's kind of halfway between being desert and grassland. And as we look at West Africa, we're going to learn more about the Sahel. So, West Africa, let's do this. Bunch of countries in West Africa. Feel free to pause and take a look at the list. So, the Sahel. Got another map showing you what it is. Having the Sahel there is a very natural thing. It's natural that the desert slowly changes into grasslands rather than just stopping all of a sudden. The bad part is that the Sahel is moving. The desert is actually growing. What's happened is the people living there, for various reasons, have cut down a whole lot of the trees. Sometimes this is because they need firewood for fuel. Sometimes it's because they're trying to create new places they can farm. But see, the trees, their root systems kind of formed an underground net that kept the good soil trapped down. With the trees being dead, that's allowed the good soil to blow away, and the desert grows and moves in. So, the word for this is desertification. That's when land that didn't used to be desert becomes desert. In this picture, you can see a place where someone used to live, but they've abandoned it because the desert has literally grown over it. This is something we're going to be studying in this unit. You can literally see someone here. Man, does it not look like he is trying to farm straight in the desert? A lot of farmers have given up on this and they've moved into cities. Good news is there is a potential solution. I told you it was the thing that always kept the desert at bay was the root system of trees. People are trying to construct something called the Great Green Wall, which is basically a continent wide line of trees that will keep the desert at bay. This is a very expensive project, and countries are working really hard at it, but it's still a problem in some areas. Okay, Christianity. A good amount of West Africa is Christian after a whole bunch of Christian missionaries came in and spread the belief there. A little later, we'll look at a map showing where which religions are common in Africa. So, looks like we're on East Africa now. It's, the part over at the east. East Africa has, I think we'll see a huge lake, some huge mountains, and big old waterfall. Let's see what we got. A lot of countries. It's got the savanna. Savanna is a special word for large areas of grassland. That's where you get a lot of these classic African animals like zebras and lions, giraffes and elephants, all sorts of other things. Now, a lot of Africa is significantly poorer than many of the other regions of the world. There are quite a few parts of Africa where most people live under the international poverty line. That means in order to qualify for that, you have to make less than $1.90 in one day, an entire day of work. In America, there's not a single job or not a single legal job that follows minimum wage where you don't make significantly more than that in a single hour of work. That means people in Africa in those regions sometimes have to survive on less than $700 a year. This can become kind of like a cycle that locks families into poverty because when families make that little money, they are often forced to have young kids help with the work because if kids aren't helping with the work, the family doesn't have enough money to buy food. And if the kids are having to help with the work, that means they can't go to school. And if the kids grow up without having gone to school, they don't have the opportunity to get jobs that could help them break out of this cycle of poverty. On the right hand side, the kid there with the kind of distended large belly, he is suffering from something called kwashiorkor. It's a disease caused by malnutrition. The the stomach gets really big because it's or the belly gets really big because it's bloated with gas. There's I've had students ask me, can't we just send medicine? There's nothing wrong with that kid that some bed rest and a decent diet wouldn't solve. It's easy for us here with the lives we have to forget just how good we have things. And sadly, that isn't true everywhere in the world. This is Lake Victoria. This lake is huge. It is bigger than some countries. It's bigger than quite a few states in the United States. It's really big. These are the Victoria Falls. Depending on how you measure, there's a lot of ways to measure waterfalls, like how tall it is or how much water goes over it. But by some measures, the Victoria Falls are some of the biggest waterfalls in the entire world. This is Mount Kilimanjaro, the biggest mountain in all of Africa. And as a nice little runner up prize, here is Mount Kenya, another very large mountain, all located in Eastern Africa. All right, moving on to Central Africa. This is where you get the African rainforest with, things like monkeys and gorillas and, hey, leopards. All right, let's see. Here are the countries located in Central Africa. Here's a picture of the Congolese rainforest. And here's a picture of the endangered mountain gorilla. All right, almost done. We're moving on to Southern Africa now. Only a few countries are actually considered to be a part of this region. Let's take a look. Okay, South Africa. We are going to talk specifically about South Africa a little later in the course. I'll give a few hints here, but you'll hear more about it as this unit goes on. This right here is Table Mountain. It's near the city of Cape Town, and it's famous because this cloud right here is almost always here. There are cable cars that run up to the mountain, so if you've ever wanted to say, hey, I've walked through a cloud, this is a good place to go. Now, so far, a lot of what we've been looking at are like African wildlife and the natural environment. But one thing I want you to have firmly in your mind is the idea that while Africa absolutely does have all this incredible wildlife and deserts and jungles and lakes and mountains, it's got a whole bunch of modern cities as well. We've got Cape Town, Lagos, Nairobi, Kinshasa, and Cairo. All of these are huge modern cities filled with, cars and buses and Wi-Fi and everything that any one of us would expect from a great big city. Africa truly is a place of enormous diversity in every sense of the word. Okay, here's a breakdown of where you're likely to find religions in Africa. On the left, traditional African religions. This isn't just one religion. This is a collection of many of the existing faiths that have existed in Africa for many thousands of years. In the middle, we have Islam, or the Muslim religion. As you can see, basically the farther north, or in some cases east you are, the more likely it is you are going to find people who are Muslim, and Christianity tends to be more common in the south and to a lesser extent in the west. Here's a picture of people celebrating a traditional African religion ceremony. Again, a traditional African religion isn't one thing. There are hundreds and hundreds of traditional African belief systems. By themselves, none of them is big enough to compare with the size of Christianity or Islam. But when you collect all of them into a group, they become a pretty significant part of the population, especially in some regions. Okay, we're almost done. Nelson Mandela. We are literally going to spend an entire day on this guy. Mr. Murray loves talking about the life of Nelson Mandela. I wish you could see me because I would be giving him my personal 2 thumbs up. He has a fascinating life story, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. And along with him, this is F.W. de Klerk. Again, I'm trying not to spoil what we're going to do later, but we're going to talk a bit about the history of South Africa, which is a history of a nation deeply, deeply divided by racial prejudice. And this guy here, and especially Nelson Mandela, took big steps towards ending that. And I cannot wait to share that with you guys. I do believe that brings us to the end of this particular video. I know it was a long one. Thanks for sticking with me. And until next time, please stay safe and stay healthy.